They didn't allow foreigners to come to this particular island that I've just built a resort on. So we've gone and did a deal with the chief of police, paid him off. And so we had the first group of tourists came, they were South Africans. Most guys were like, that I met were in their 30s. And to be honest, a lot of them, they were like supplementing their travel by doing drug runs. I've had different friends disappear over the years. You know, I know that they're involved in smuggling drugs, might be cocaine or dope. And one mate, I didn't see him for like 10 years. And then he got out and, hey, Willie, how you doing?
Hey folks, Pete here from Thairish Times. What's the story? Well, I'll tell you what the story is. The last video I did on the channel was an interview with a gentleman named Willy, who left Australia at 19 years old, moved to Southeast Asia, lived in Thailand, lived in the Philippines, lived in Indonesia, told us a story about his life. Great story. But at the end of that interview in part one, Willy said, Pete, that's not my full story. I've got more to say. And I said, what do you have to say, Willy? And he said, well, I've got stories about drug running. I've got stories about paying off the Indonesian police. I've got stories about how I nearly got thrown into a Indonesian jail. And I said, wow, that's good stuff. Let's do a part two. And that's what we have for you today. So as I always say, the best way to help out the channel is to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment. So if you enjoyed this, do all those things. And thanks very much. Let's go do part two with Willy from Australia. All right, Willy, here we are, part two. We're going to get into, well, I suppose we could probably call this one the nitty gritty of, the old expat tales, which I do like to hear. So anyway, in the first episode, part one, you told us about your life as a sea captain. But what I would like to know is what made you become a sea captain?
Okay, yeah, good to be back. All right, yeah, why I became a sea captain, that's a good question. Well, one, it was in my family because my dad was a mariner. But two is because my first year, when I was 19, and I was in Indonesia traveling around, and most guys were like, that I met were in their 30s, mid 30s. And to be honest, a lot of them, they were like supplementing their travel by doing drug runs, so there was sort of all sorts of scams going on. And they got a bit excited when I come along, like this young 19-year-old, he's the apprentice. And I just said, no, guys, I was terrified to get caught and thrown in an Asian jail. The Australians would know, like a few years before I traveled, there were two Australians called Barlow and Chambers, and they were caught in Penang, Malaysia with heroin and were hanged. They were hung. So, I had the fear of God in me, and I just didn't want to, I was a dope smoker, but I wasn't going to risk getting thrown in a jail.
What about these guys in Indonesia? What kind of drugs were they running?
Oh, they were just running just dope, like marijuana, hash, just light drugs, because, surfers like to smoke. So like, where we were staying, there was this American guy would bring in this hash he'd get it from Nepal, and bring it down through Bangkok, Thailand, across in their body. We'd be there waiting for him to shit it out. And we're excited, and we'd smoke it. There were like guys would bring it from, the Japanese would bring it from the Philippines. There was people would bring it from Thailand. There was also local, like a place called Lake Toba in Sumatra, near where we stayed. The locals there grew it as well. So yeah, they were doing that, and they were traveling. They were full-time travelers and getting their funds through smuggling drugs. But also there was other scams like travelers checks. They do travelers check scams, travel insurance. Also, I was even asked to traffic Thai girls to Japan. That was another one. There was another like slightly kind of legal one. A lot of guys used to take surfboards to Japan as well and sell their surfboards at exorbitant prices.
Who asked you to take Thai girls to Japan? Can you just explain who are these people? Like, where'd you meet them?
Well, just from around, just drinking around bars in Patong, you get to meet different people while you were there. I remember one year I was there and I met this guy, Mike. He was like an Australian underworld figure, and he was doing it. And a friend of mine got caught up in his racket and ended up doing time in jail. But at the time, it was a good life. I was a bit sus of the guy at first, but he'd make a map, like a plan of where we're going to go out in Patong that night based on who would give him credit. So we'd go to different bars and they'd give him credit. So he just lived on credit, I guess, until the next deal was done. But I just didn't want to be any part of it. So I just said, no, I'll just go work for my 6 months and make money.
So we're talking small amounts? Are we talking large amounts, or are these guys just smuggling it in their purse and like eating it, and so it's a small amount? Or are we talking about a suitcase full of hash?
No, what they could fit in their body, so they'd swallow it and bring it through. But yeah, same would go with cocaine. They'd be taking it inside internally. There's people that sail yachts as well. They do drug smuggling doing yachts, but that was more in the 70s and earlier days. These days, it's pretty hard.
So your friend, he was trafficking Thai women to Japan. He got caught.
No, I didn't really ask him. He's still a mate today, but I think he got caught up in credit card scams somehow. But I didn't ask too much. But he did time. He got caught in Australia, luckily, and did time in Australia. I've had different friends disappear over the years. I know that they're involved in smuggling drugs, might be cocaine or dope. And one mate, I didn't see him for like 10 years. And then he got out and, hey, Willy, how you doing? And come to think of it, he's disappeared again for about a year. So he's probably caught again.
So what other scams have you seen over the years?
Like credit card scams, you have friends come over, give you their credit card, you go shopping, and they report it lost. That's all small time. There used to be a traveler's check scam too. Travel insurance, that was a big one. So you say you've had everything stolen, cash, valuables, etc. Like I knew mates that couldn't get any travel insurance because they'd done it so many times. But we're not talking about large scale here. It's just all small scale, where it just keeps the guys traveling. From memory, like when I was asked to take Thai girls to Japan, so that was probably in the early 90s. I think it was around $3,000 at the time, which was, I could survive a year on $3,000 in those days in Asia. So, a lot of guys went for it.
And how big do you think this organization would be that would, back in the day, that would traffic Thai women to Japan? Are we talking about like foreigners? Are we talking about Thais? Like how big, like what kind of a structure would this organization, underworld organization, have?
Yeah, I'd say it'd be Thais, with foreigners involved. A bit like you interviewed a guy once before that was teaching English, and he was doing some market as well, wasn't he? So yeah, similar situation. But yeah, I was asked and I just thought about it quickly and said no, I didn't want to get involved. I'd rather go and earn money. I don't want to end up in jail, mate.
But you told me that you had a couple of close calls.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I was when I was building my house in Indonesia, in Simelu. I'd lived there too long, and I'd spoken a language, and I was a bit crazy, to be honest. I think I was a bit confident because my wife at the time, her family had connections, because her grandfather was deputy governor of the region, so they were pretty untouchable. And so we went in and built this house, but we could only get illegal timber to build the house, and this was supplied from the military, right? So we got this timber because we built a big 2-story house, 15-foot high ceilings. I can't remember how many cubic of timber now, but it was a lot. And basically the army would come in at 3 o'clock in the morning with trucks full of timber and just dump it on our lawn, And the rule was that if this timber was up as a house, it can't be confiscated. So we had the workers there nailing timber up. you know, and building this house basically early mornings of the day. And we never got caught. But you couldn't buy any legal timber. That's the thing, you know, there's so many rackets in Asia. So you could not buy legal timber. That was the only way we could get wood to build this house. And then once we'd built it, and at the time, there was, like I said in the last video, there was a civil war in Aceh, Sumatra. They were at war with Jakarta, basically. They wanted independence. And this war had gone on for about a decade. And I'm talking like the arms, they were given AK-47s from, I think they were, you know, they're getting trained in the Middle East how to fight. They'd send all the arms over through southern Thailand across to Aceh, to Sumatra. And so this has gone on for 10 years. So this is before the tsunami. So I went in, and it was civil law, like, I guess you'd call it, like, so it was like the police were running the place, and it was getting pretty tight. They didn't allow foreigners to come to this particular island that I've just built a resort on. And I'm trying to bring in groups of surfers. And so basically my wife said, well, we have to go to the police. I said, what for? I said, oh, we have to pay off the chief of police, you know, then we'll get the tourists in. So we've gone and did a deal with the chief of police, paid him off. And so we had the first group of tourists came, they were South Africans, all these old surf legends I knew, taken them on trips before. Anyway, they've flown in totally illegally. Chief of police arranged it. And then and the governor come up to me and goes, oh, we have to have a party. You know, they're the first tourists of this island. We've never had tourists here before. And I said, but the place is illegal. He goes, doesn't matter. So anyway, they came in and he put on this lavish party, had local dancers, gave them like souvenirs. You're the first tourist of Simalu, you know, and none of us were even allowed to be there. It was pretty funny. But that's just how it works in Asia.
So you paid him off. Are we talking a large amount, or how much did you pay him off?
It wasn't much, to be honest. I can't remember now. It was so long ago. It wouldn't have been much. I probably gave him a couple of $100 a month.
So basically, you were allowed to take tourists to the island as long as you kept paying him.
Yeah, all that, but mainly the payment was for alcohol because it's a Muslim area. All right, so they frowned on alcohol, and so I couldn't buy it there. So I used to get my groups there. I used to illegally hire planes from the Navy, Indonesian Navy in Medan. It was an hour flight from Medan to Simalu. So I'd pay them, they'd moonlight. So all the money went in their pocket. And we'd load up these planes with surfboards, and I used to bring 10 guys. And then we'd throw in all the beer as well, and they'd land in Simalu. So they were making money. The chief of police was making money because I was paying him off. And yeah, and then they had tourists coming in. So to get the beer, I remember one day I had a plane come in. I had like 50 cartons of beer on the plane or something. So I've driven to the airport. It's just around the corner from my place. And I loading all the beer. And I saw this young policeman, right? He's just there looking at me with a big grin on his face. And I'm like, anyway, then he's followed me to my house, and I have a big gate out the front. I stopped to open it, and he comes up with a big smile on his face. He goes, what's that in the back of your car? I said, oh, beer, why? He goes, oh, you know what's illegal here? I said, call your boss. He goes, huh? I said, call your boss. So he calls his boss, and he went, oh, sorry, sir. It took off, you know. It's like the small fry were trying to get in, but you got to pay number one in Asia.
And did this guy, he went off, but did he have it in for you then? Because he knew that he couldn't touch you, but I'm sure he didn't like the fact that he couldn't touch you.
No, I had no problem at all. No, I had no animosity there. But yeah, he just, I was taught a lesson. We had a few things like that. Then later on, it changed from civil law into martial law, where the army were in charge. And then they said that foreigners could come, but you had to have a permit to be there. And anyway, a year had gone by, and I didn't have a permit. I just stayed there. And there was this guy called Danny. I remember this military guy. He's come, and he was trying to get me. He's like, "Where's your permit?" I said, "Oh, I don't have one." He said, "Oh, I'm going to throw you in jail if you don't have a permit." So I thought I better get out of here, And I've gone down to the ferry to go. And I used to catch this ferry from the mainland, and on the ferry, they're called mariners. It's like the Marines used to go on the ferry, and they got their AK-47s. And every time I'd get on board, I'd have a carton of cigarettes and a bottle of Johnny Walker for them, and they loved me. That's how it works in Asia. And they'd be there, like they'd get drunk, and then they're firing their AK-47s and stuff. It was a pretty wild ferry trip. But anyway, this day, this military guy's in the army, he said, "I'm going to arrest you." And I'm like, okay. So I took off to get on the ferry to get out of this island. And all my Marine mates were on board, and they loved me. So this Danny guy there's saying to them, "Give him to me. I want to put him in jail." And they go, "No, you'll have to fight us," holding up their AK-47s, because they're a different fraction. They were Navy. So anyway, I waved goodbye to Danny, the military guy, and went and got a permit and came back and said, "Here's my permit." So, I can't, now looking back at it, I can't believe I was so cocky, but I had very good connections through my wife at the time.
And how long did this business go on for?
So yeah, I built the place in 2000, and then, then the tsunami happened, Boxing Day 2004. So that's changed everything. But what happened then, because the time I was there, I was basically one of the only white guys there. There was me and another surfer, Dean from Newcastle in Australia. Now, this place was a pretty quiet place, not many tourists went there. But then overnight, all the aid organizations came in. So next thing you know, there were white guys everywhere, from all nationalities. So, yeah, that happened. I worked for them for a few years, and I went through marital problems and split up from my wife. So I spent 6 years on that island running that business, and then I left.
And I suppose the reason you can tell this story is you don't ever plan to go back there again, right?
Yeah, well, I could write a book about it, but I won't. But yeah, hopefully not too many people watch this. Yeah.
There could be a boat pull up on the Philippines, and you could be dragged into a boat in the middle of the night and taken back over to Indonesia.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'll still slip in occasionally. I had another, after that job, I was looking for another job, and a friend called me back down in Padang, which is south of Sumatra. It's like mid-Sumatra. That's where all these surf charter boats are based. That's where I used to work. And he asked me to come and do a job, take over from him in a job, and it was refitting an old Pinisi Indonesian boat. They're all made of wood, these huge old pirate ships. And these were doing surfing tours. And I went into that job, and this is another time where I was almost locked up, because went in there and we're doing a refit, and it needed 15 cubic of timber to refit the boat. And once again, you could only buy illegal timber. You couldn't get timber that was legal. So obviously it was a racket, people are making money. So I said, okay, well, let's buy it then. And there was an Indonesian captain working with me. So he was the guy, I was just the guy in the background, the white guy in the background managing it. And then I had to leave. I had to go across to Singapore to arrange a work visa for Indonesia. And then while I was there, it happened, I was expecting it to take a week, and it only happened, I got it done in a day. So I thought, I'm going up to Phuket then for the rest of the week, and enjoy myself for a week. And I was up there, and then I had a message from the captain, and he's going, "Oh, Mr. Willy, I'm in jail." I said, "What for?" He goes, "Oh, because of this illegal timber. The police have come and got me, and they want this much money to get me out, And first of all, I just think, that's a scam. And the boat was owned by like a group of South Africans. There was about 5 of them. And I remember getting this email, and I said, "How much do they want to get out of jail?" And he said, say they said $500. I said, "Offer them 100, and see what they say." And he did that and got the price down. But it was in rupiah, and Indonesian rupiah. $100 is like 20 million rupiah. It comes out to. And when this South African guy got the message, it's going to cost 20 million to get out, he's gone, "Fucking do not pay that money," And I knew it was only $100. And I said to the guy, "Look, get into my house that I was staying in." I said, "I've got the money there, and get yourself out of jail." Anyway, I've come back in town, and this guy that I've just saved from jail, for some reason, he wants to blame it on me, right? He's probably looking for more money And he's there and he's up to, he goes, why did you leave? Why you went to Singapore? I said, well, I had to go and get this visa organized. And then he goes, no, I think you knew about this. You knew the police were going to come. You know, he's playing mind games with me. And he goes, I'm going to tell him it's you. And I'm like, fucking what? You know, like, so I can see myself going to jail then. And I'm just the middleman, really. So I just made the decision straight away. I've got to get out of town, you know. And I flew up to the capital city an hour away, called Medan. But I just entered on this work visa. So I was supposed to go and register with immigration in that town when I arrived. And I've just arrived and I'm leaving already. And the immigration officer, he doesn't want to stamp my passport to leave. And I'm like, oh, shit, I was sweating, you know, because I thought I'm going to get caught here. And I said, look, I made up some story. Oh, my mum's sick. I need to leave. And I said, look, and I had a girlfriend at the time, Indonesian, who was really switched on. And I said, look, call her. She's the boss. She'll tell you that my mum's sick. I've got to get out of here. And luckily, she spoke to him and said, yep, let him leave. And he stamped my visa, my passport, and I flew out. And I was just so overwhelmed. You know, I could see myself going to jail.
Say if they did throw you in jail, like, would you have to buy your way out, or would you go down for it and stuff?
Yeah, you buy your way out, you know.
How much, what are you talking to buy your way out of it? A couple of $1,000 or what?
Yeah, I guess it depends who's involved, you know. It depends if you're with the low lying policeman, it won't be as expensive. But once you get up to the boss, yeah, it's going to cost you a bit more. After that, I left Indonesia and I went to Phuket and got a job managing boats, you know, and just thought, I think my Indonesian days are over, you know. So yeah.
So after we've done part 1 and part 2, just looking kind of at you, at your personality, right? It seems to be that you've been someone that has been able to reinvent themselves along the way. Started off surfing, then you became a sea captain, then you had the opportunity to get tourists over to Simalu Island, and then you were involved in making boats, and now you're working in oil and gas. Tell us about that. Have you just been able to reinvent yourself over your whole life?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, like well, you know, my dad had very good work ethic, and he worked on boats all his life, and I think that's it. I've had work ethic. You know, like I don't mind working. I always like, you know, I'm a bit of a, not really an entrepreneur, but I'm always thinking of what to do, what's next, you know, how can I make money? So yeah, reinventing for sure. I do that. And, but I'm still working in a maritime job, you know, so it all came down to that decision of getting qualified, you know. I've tried different businesses, but you know, frankly, I'm not a good businessman. I'm a terrible businessman. So yeah, so hopefully now I only have to work for another 6 years and retire. But I don't know. If I won Powerball last night, I'd be retired now. But I've got to keep working. You know, I've got kids to educate. So that's how it is. But yeah, but it's good that you can choose to make a living in Southeast Asia. You know, there's so many opportunities, especially now, all this online work, and you know, there's more and more digital nomads around the place. So it's great, you know.
Yeah, it has changed the game a little bit. But you know, sometimes I kind of think you see these videos and people make out like, move to Asia, your life will be better. It's a great sales strategy for a YouTube video. The reality can be different. It takes the right type of person to live long term in Asia. I think it's not for everybody. So anyway, you mentioned 6 years you're going to be retired. What's the plans then when you retire? You're going to stay in the Philippines, or you know, what are your future goals here?
Yeah, well, you know, number one for me is my kids' education, and yeah, I'll stay in the Philippines, or you know, yeah, I'm very happy in the Philippines, you know. So, but I don't think I'll ever retire, Pete. Like, you know, I'm a worker. You know, like I'll be in 6 years' time. I'll be 60 years old. So I can't see myself not working. I'll still work. I could still go and do the odd swing in the job I'm on now, go and do a few months.
How about your job now in oil and gas? You're in, is it Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, in Abu Dhabi, yes.
What's it like there? Is it a stressful job? Like, talk us through like what exactly it is that you do there.
Okay, well, I'm a marine safety advisor. So I work on ships on the safety side of things. So no, it's not that stressful. It's a pretty good job, pretty relaxed job, but it's not for everyone. If you work on ships, I'm on ships for 5 to, or actually the next job I'm going to, it's going to be in India, and it's 8 weeks at a time offshore on a ship. So it's like not everyone could handle that because you're in a confined area. You're only on a ship. You can't go everywhere. You can't get away from the people you work with. So it's like when this COVID came, you have to go and do quarantine COVID. For me, it was a piece of piss because I'm used to living in that environment. So yeah, so I'll be doing like 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off in that job. So 2 months off is a long time. So I'll probably pick up another job for a month and holiday for a month.
It's not really for everybody, right? Because some people, if you're away from your family for 5-6 weeks or whatever, that could be tough, especially if you have young kids and, you miss your kids.
Oh, for sure. Well, to be honest, last year my wife died of COVID, right? And so I'm a single father. I've got 2 young lads here in the Philippines, 8 and 11. But yeah, that was really hard. I couldn't even get home when she died. Like I was stuck in UAE. There was a travel ban on. And so she died in August. I didn't get home till November. But luckily, I know a lot of good people over here, and I arranged some of my workers I had in a previous resort to go and watch my kids because I had no choice, So yeah, I guess you do have to reinvent yourself a lot.
So, sorry to hear that, Willie. That must have been extremely stressful.
Oh, it was, but what do you do? Like, yeah, you roll with the punches, mate. You take what life gives you, So a lot of people think that, oh yeah, Willie's got an easy life, but yeah, there's a lot of shit goes on in the background that you have to deal with. How's life in Dublin?
It is. I'm slowly adjusting. I'm getting used to it. It took me a while to get used to it, but strangely enough, autumn, we've had decent weather here in autumn, and a breakaway from the hot weather has actually been nice for a change. It's great to be able to go outside between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. In Thailand, just too hot. Now I know I shouldn't be saying, oh, it's too hot in Thailand. It's just been a change, but we've only been here 2 months, so I'm hoping that what will it be like going through the winter. But I'm happy to see my friends again. I'm happy to see my family again. Noon is enjoying it. She loves it. She's doing well. So I'm just looking at the positive side.
Yeah, that's great. And I tell you what, Noon has an Irish accent now.
She does. She's that's all everyone's saying. Everyone keeps saying to her. The Irish people keep saying to her, "Oh, you've only been here 6 weeks and you already have an Irish accent." One guy said, "It blows my mind. I can't understand it." I was just laughing when I heard it. Like, she's had an Irish accent for the last 5 years, pal.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, my wife had an Aussie accent, so yeah, Filipino with an Aussie accent. So yeah, it's great.
There you go. But Willie, take it easy. Look, I'll talk to you soon, yeah? And I'll stick your channel. Willie's channel is in the description, and subscribe to Thairish Times. Hit the like button, and as I always say, leave a comment. Those are the things you can do that really help out this channel. So Willie, take it easy, mate. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Pete. Cheers.
Bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
See ya.